Good afternoon, Atlanta. You're listening to WCEG Network. This is Veterans Today on Friday. You listen to WCEG Network. Watch us live on Smart TV. You can also watch us on WCEG Network YouTube. We are your worldwide community empowerment group. My name is Herman Anderson. My co-host Anthony Aiken is traveling today. You can also watch us live on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and call in and join the conversation at 678-619-1402. And as I said earlier, we are your worldwide community empowerment group. And today, as our guest, we have Mr. Michael Owens, who is a veteran and who is also just qualified, I understand, to run for the congressman for the 13th Congressional District. Mr. Owen, would you introduce yourself and give us a little bit of background information?
Sure. First of all, happy to be here again, Herman. It's been a while, so happy to be back on Veterans Today. I love the show. I think it's a needed show in a good space. Veterans need help. We need to make sure that any news that are going on about veteran affairs and things that are happening in the community as it relates to veterans gets out to the people. So thank you guys for the service that you do, continued service that you do for our country by still making sure that veterans issues stay on top of everyone's mind. So with that said, yeah, I'm a proud Marine Corps veteran. I'm a third generation vet. Hoorah to all the double dogs out there. One of the Marines that literally graduated on a Friday from high school, and Sunday I was down in Paris Island standing on those yellow footprints. So times I'll never forget. I mean, it's in a lot of ways shaped who I am as a person. I then went on to go to Quantico as well. So I went through enlistment in Paris Island, also went to officer school. Got a great opportunity to go to officer school in Quantico a couple of years after that. So, I'm proud and happy of my Marine Corps service. I was initially in communications and comms. So I was working on radios. That was my first job in the Marine Corps, fixing radios for the guys that was out in the field. So
I was in the Air Force and I was in communication.
Okay.
Only 4 years, but I didn't make a career out of it. But
not many people do. Only reason I say I have a career out of it is because my dad was a Marine, so I joined when I was about 5 years old. People asked me when I decided I was joining the Marine Corps, and I was like, "Is there a choice?" So I think I joined Marine Corps before I even joined kindergarten. So, but again, I enjoyed my time. I think it's vitally important that we have veterans not only as they serve, but when they finish serving, they take that uniform off. There's many of us that still want to find ways to serve our community, still ways that we want to be involved and impactful and make a difference. And again, this show is an extension of doing just that. And I think in a lot of ways, me running for office and being engaged and involved in the community is part of that. Just want to, what I say is continuing to serve after you take off your uniform. That's a really important thing. So, and that's really been, my effort since coming out of the Marine Corps and going on, obviously continuing my education, which I think is obviously vitally important. I went to North Carolina A&T State University, so a historically black university up in Greensboro, North Carolina.
Okay.
And then I took my trip down here to Georgia, where I went to Georgia Tech, get my master's degree. I got my doctorate in international business in Cal University, and then I always like to say I made my mama proud by going to Cambridge, Massachusetts, and stepping on the campus of Harvard University, and where I was a member of the first Emerging Leaders Program at Kennedy School of Government.
Well, we definitely congratulate you for all of your accomplishments, and I'm sure the Marines and all veterans are proud of you, and you represent us well.
Yeah, well, thank you. I think it's going outside of the Marine Corps and just veterans as a whole. I think it's important that we have representation. One of the reasons I'm running for Congress as well is that I think it's important that veterans are in office and remain engaged in office. At one point in time, it was very customary to find lots of veterans in the halls of Congress and in the White House and in state senates, and you don't see that as much anymore, right? Those numbers have definitely dropped off for very different reasons. But at the end of the day, when we've been in situations where we've been at war, in Afghanistan for 18, 19 years, there's some that still think we're on the brink of war with Iran. It's definitely time to have veterans in office and, people that can shine at least a different perspective on some of these things.
Yeah. And so you're running for the 13th Congressional District, right?
That is correct. I'm running for the 13th.
Before we get into that, because like say you was on a show before and you were working with the Democratic Party in Cobb, give us a little bit of background.
Yeah, sure. So my involvement in the party has been pretty extensive. So I was the chairman of the Democratic Party in Cobb County. I think actually during the last election back in 2016, as a matter of fact, in the run up to that election, I was working with the party. I was working with presidential candidates then to try to secure a victory, running all over Metro Atlanta and Clayton County, Henry County, Cobb, and as you know, we fell a little short, right? The Democrats did not win that election, but it obviously didn't deter me from the job we were doing. So after that, I got elected as the chairman of the Democratic Party in Cobb County. Prior to that, I was the vice chairman. And, had some good outcome from that. Cobb County was one of those counties that had went from red to blue. And Senator Clinton at that time did win Cobb County. So we knew kind of what we were doing was working a little bit. So, I spent the last 4 years, working heavily within the party, leading the Cobb County Democratic Party and really growing a large coalition. I think, when I took over the organization, it was still a relatively small group of people. But, when I resigned this past year, we had the largest county committee in the state of Georgia resides in Cobb County. Yes. And for anyone that knows the history of Cobb County, that's huge, right? I mean, it's...
So a little bit of background. What led to that? Was it your leadership?
I happened to be the chairman at the time. I do think I brought some new vision into what was going on and what we were doing but part of it starts with believing what's possible. A lot of it had to do with the growth and the coalition building that we did, going into parts of the county where we had never competed before, rallying different groups. Matter of fact, one of the first things that I did as chairman, I started a Veterans and Military Families Caucus, right? A subcommittee within the Democratic Party specifically to focus on veterans and the spouses and children, which was a huge success. We were able to rally a lot of people around because, a lot of times when you're trying to pull people into a movement, you got to embrace people and you got to get people where they are. So I can remember going into meetings up in Ackworth, right, where we didn't know anyone in Ackworth, but we knew there were people, that they were Democrats up there. We didn't, there's a lot of people that we didn't know, and in East Cobb was a huge turnout, right, of people where we historically had not even had candidates run for office. So part of it is getting candidates to actually run. People need people to show up at the ballot box. You need to have people on the ballot that people want to actually go vote for. So it was a combination of things. I think it was part of that was my vision to really turn a lot of things around, open the party up, and the other thing was having candidates that can run and then go out and engage people. We went into communities. We were in South Cobb. We were down off Veterans Memorial. We were down, off of Six Flags Drive. Places where I think historically Democrats had held office, so the party hadn't bothered to go there because we were winning elections, and people were just going to vote for Democrats anyway. I typically think that's the wrong attitude to take, right? I think we need to go out and really engage and pull those people in that are in those districts. And look, we can no longer say that just because someone's a minority or because someone's a certain age demographic, they automatically are going to vote a certain way. We should never be in a situation where we're going to take certain votes for granted. So I think it's really about engaging people, giving them a reason to get out to the polls and tell people what we stand for.
Again, let me remind you, you can call in at 678-619-1402. This is Veterans Today. And back to Michael, after that, you decided to run for office?
Yeah, I had said that there was, even without my uniform, there is still a service that I wanted to do. And, and prior to even becoming chair, I still did a lot of work kind of in the national security and cybersecurity space. And my background is in cybersecurity and technology. And because of that, I've got to work internationally on a lot of different projects and efforts, and which really led me to doing a lot of work around national security. For you Army vets out there, I had a great honor, I think it was the summer before last, to go to the Army War College and attend their national security program up in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. So I actually got an opportunity to spend some time up there. A great program. They've got some really, really smart people at the Army War College working on national, international issues, right? Literally talking about our national security and how those issues play into the kind of the strategic operations, not only of the military, but of the government as a whole, and then on down to our national assets, right? The critical assets that must be protected in this country. So, my running for this office is really a combination of all those things, right? My background and kind of coming of age in the military and the Marine Corps, the work I've done, the collaborative work I've done within the Democratic Party, and then the other work that I've done through my professional career in cybersecurity and national security, and seeing things for what they are, right? The challenging times that are upon us, I think has enabled me to kind of look at a lot of these different things and kind of pull together a complete package of understanding what the needs are locally, and being able to fight for those things, whether that's healthcare or improve jobs within the district or education. My work within the party, understanding how we have to build, right? We cannot have another 4 years of what we've had to endure thus far. So the only way we're going to change that is actually by organizing and mobilizing and building. And then lastly is, like I said, my work around national security and cybersecurity, and how I think, we can talk about that in a little bit, but how much of a threat that I think that it is, and how we need to have more focus on that.
Okay. And based on the package of your priorities, and also included, I would include in that is particular veteran care. We all know as a veteran, and people that help veterans know that there's no problem sending us overseas and sending us to war.
Right.
But the issues that we have with the VA taking care of veteran is high priority that need to be improved. So how does that fit into you?
Yeah, without doubt. Well, it definitely fits in. I mean, there's no way that it couldn't, right? Being in the 13th Congressional District, which covers Cobb, Douglas, South Fulton, Northern Fayette, Clayton County, and then parts of Henry County, there's a tremendous number of veterans that we have that live throughout the district, who all would like to see the VA improve, and not just the Veterans Administration, but I think the care and understanding of veterans across the board. And one of the first things I say is that you want to care about veterans and what's going on. The first thing we do is we can stop creating more disabled veterans, more veterans that are coming home from war. We can start deploying as many people as we have. We talked before about how, this wars that kind of continue to go on and on. A lot of people ask me about, where we decide to get involved at in different skirmishes, wars, conflicts around the world, and other places where we don't. But as it relates specifically to veterans care, that was that's one of the things that are definitely on my list. I think we have to address. Again, seeing my father and my grandfather, all kind of go through their bouts with health and go through the VA. Myself, as a kid growing up with Champa's VA, right, and going through the dentists and doctors and having to fill out the paperwork after you get your bill, and then wait for a check to come in the mail some weeks and months later. We understand the challenges. But I like to give some credit where credit's due, right? I mean, I think I can remember back. All the way maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago, where there was hundreds of thousands of backlogs, right?
Yes.
We were still dealing with filing cabinets, in today's age with records, and the job of getting those digitized and put on on computers where, we can really speed up the processing. But, like any other bureaucracy, there's fundamental problems that we still have, and we see that today. First and foremost, we obviously have to talk about the mental health issues and veteran suicide rates, which are just still completely they're reprehensible, right? And it saddens us to our core that men and women who are more than happy to put their life on the line in defense of this country somehow find it unable to move on after coming back home. Survive some of the most deadliest, bloodiest, most horrendous acts of things being seen and done, the carnage of war, but come back into civilian life sometime and decide that they don't want to go forward. So we still have to do more to get at the heart of that. And so I just want to stop right there, because if we're not making that first front and center, then there's a problem. Right?
Okay. So let's start with your campaign. What are your strategy to get everybody involved and actually to win this campaign?
Yeah. So it's about mobilizing people, right? We got to make sure that we get out, raise the amplification about what the campaign's about. Really, it's, we have to talk about those issues that are front and center. And obviously veteran issues are those. We have to talk about, healthcare. We have to talk about mass incarceration, which I think is a problem throughout the district and throughout this country, that we're locking up far too many people for far too long. And we know there's a bias there where Black and brown people, and particularly men, are being locked up at a much higher rate than others. So, we have to talk about those issues and be courageous enough to put those on the platform and go, we're going to talk about these issues because these are things that we need to fix, not only in the 13th district, but across Georgia and across the country. Voting rights. There's people that's bled and died for the fact and the ability to go to the polls. And exercise that right and truly have that as a right. So we've got to make sure that we do more about that to make sure that we're protecting everyone's right to vote. We're making sure that our elections are fair and free. And we're making sure that, from a cybersecurity standpoint, election security standpoint, I want to make sure that we have elections that can't be tampered with. We're making sure. So, there's a lot of things around that we really have to do. But on the veterans thing, we've got to make sure that we have a clear direction when it comes to veterans care and services and what are things we're going to do, even from a campaign standpoint. We say, well, Michael, if you were congressman tomorrow, what are the things that you would do or could do around veterans? And it's a good point, because we want to sometimes let people know what to expect, or what are they signing up for when they go to support Owens for Congress, which is www.owensforcongress.com, and throw that in there. You can follow us on the website. You can go to Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, all that good stuff, and make sure you check out WCEG as well. But yeah, specific things, I want to make sure.
Let me ask you about, for an example, the prison system. If we go relax it, or if we gonna change it, how would you support we have a reentry program? How would you improve that?
Well, I think, but before we go for the reentry, we've got to look at the issue about entry to begin with, because I think we're locking up far too many people for far too long. We need to look and see, is our sentencing, or from our arrests to our sentencing and on through, making sure that's being done in a just manner, first of all, right? And then, I think, one point around that is, non-violent, particularly drug-related, particularly marijuana. I'm at a point now where I don't think anyone should go to jail and serve any prison time at all for possession of marijuana. I think that's been used far too long as a way to fill up our prisons and to put more, too many Black and brown men in jail for that. Now, to get to the other part of the reentry back into society, we want to focus on dropping the rate of recidivism, right? To make sure when someone has done their time, their likelihood of going back to jail is as close to zero as possible. The first way that we do that, we have to restore their dignity, right? Once someone's done their time, we have to look and see how they can reintegrate back into society to make sure that they can get a decent job. They can get back to a situation where they can become the head of the household, where they can take care of their family, they can take care of their children. The way situations are now, if you get out of prison for whatever reason you did your time, and you can't find a job, no one's willing to hire you. You can't get credit for anything. Of course, that level of recidivism is going to go back up because you're simply not affording opportunity. So, I had a great opportunity down in Stockbridge earlier, or I think it was late last year, to take part in an event where it was a job fair, but it was a specific job fair, specific based on those who have served time and came out. And the specific thing about that job fair was it was known to the employers that this was the situation that they had. They were going to have people that were coming. I think in that particular event, there was 101 Black and brown men that showed up. Out of that, 41 actually got jobs that we know right now.
That's great.
That we know of, right? So we know it's possible. We know that people can serve their time. The best thing for reentry back in civilian society is to make sure that we do everything we can to prevent the recidivism, and that means restoring their dignity a bit. You do that by giving them a job.
So that brought it up another point in my mind. Do you feel like we accurately track the results of what we do to help people, whether it's particularly with this situation? Do you feel like the state keeps accurate records, or the county keep accurate records?
No, I think it's very, very hard to, right? The way that they keep records is the way that I'd probably prefer them not to, which is through parole and probation. Right. Far too often in the state, look, Georgia has a problem with this. There's no doubt about it. Right. We put more people on papers. We put more people on parole and probation. And you guys can fact check me, go look these numbers up, but it's astonishing. Right. So I want to make sure that we're not kind of overusing that, and in some cases compensating that simply for a revenue generator. Right. I think for the most part, when we have people that have done their time and they came out, they want to live like you and I, right? Hopefully by doing that time, they've had some time of reflection, and they're really willing to go out and not do those things that may have put them in the first place. But I really want to get on the front side of it. I want to make sure that, it's sad enough. I woke up this morning and with the execution that happened in Alabama. Of a man that was on death row. And, I just think we're at the point now to where we have technology in place that we've never had before through forensics, through DNA. We have cameras all over the place now. So we have a lot more information to go off of when deciding the conviction of someone and then the sentencing they're in. And I think we've got to get away from those, the mandatory minimums that we've had in the past, get away from some of these completely biased type of sentencing structures that we had in the past, and then use some of that technology to make sure that we're locking up the right people and that we're using a just frame as to how long these people should be sentenced to jail. And in some instances, going back and looking at those cases that's been tried in the past. Anybody that's sitting on death row right now, or anyone that's serving a life sentence without parole, on some really circumspect type of evidence, I think we got to go back and look at some of those cases, right? Make sure that with the new technology, we're going back. We're scrutinizing some of this against DNA. We're scrutinizing this about some of the other things we could do through forensic technology, because we want to make sure, again, we're keeping our communities and our society safe by putting the people behind bars that need to be. But at the same time, we want to make sure that we're giving everyone a fair shot at this.
Okay, let's move on to voting. You're running for a congressional office, but the issue that we have with voter suppression, what's your take on how that should be handled to make sure that Georgia is a level playing field?
Yeah, boy, oh boy. I mean, you can go back. You can go back to Reconstruction if you want to go back. We're talking about issues that we've had in Georgia with voting and voting rights and voting suppression. The first thing I'll say is that voter suppression is real. As unfortunate as it is. But there are some specific things. Number one, I am running for federal office. And so what happens with voting and the election system itself is pushed down to the states and then into counties, right? And then down to the precincts level. So there's really kind of the sphere of influence and responsibility really gets pushed way down, right? All the way down to your poll workers and poll managers. And I always tell people, that I'm happy for the work that they do, and we need those poll managers and poll workers, but they're seasonal employees basically at best, right? And then we have, in this situation, we have new voting machines that are coming in that no one's quite certain of. But voter suppression, I want to make clear with everyone, comes in multiple different forms, and it's not always the most egregious ones that really get you, right? And something as simple as changing a polling location, where people have been going to vote forever and a day. I've seen instances where police cars are parked outside a polling location. Again, to some people, that's not an issue at all. But we have to realize that to some people, it's enough to deter them from even walking in. And no, it doesn't mean that they have warrants out for them or they're running from the police. It just makes some people uncomfortable, right?
That is true.
So there are some things that really go on. We've seen massive amounts of polling locations closed that we haven't had in the past. So that's caused problems. And we can't go without saying, we've already seen it, some starting this election cycle, long waiting lines, right? And long waiting lines, you can say, well, it impacts everybody, but it doesn't impact everyone the same. Because what we know is that more often than not, it's going to be a minority that's going to be in a situation where they don't have the latitude to take off but certain amount of hours during the day, or they may go to vote during their lunch hour, right. Or they may be trying to get there before they get to the office or after they leave the job. They don't have the latitude that I or many others may have, where they can just take the afternoon off, right? Or they could, if it's a couple of hours. I heard, certain places in Texas, I think this year alone, already waiting 5 hours to vote. And that alone is part of voter suppression, because the outcome of that is going to impact one demographic over the next. So when you look at it like that, the goal is to really get more people to be able to vote, and whether that's through faster or slower wait times, whether that's through expanding the number of locations that you have to vote, or the additional days for early voting period, whatever that is. And there's been some positive things like, being able to register to vote online has been a positive. Being able to have, early voting at multiple locations is a solid thing, but there's still a long way to go with that. And one of the biggest things is really just engaging people about voting, period, right? One of the biggest, hurdles that we can have sometimes is just not being informed about when elections are.
Well, that's kind of what I was leading to. In your campaign, how do you plan to educate people and motivate people to vote?
Yeah, in my particular opportunity, my biggest thing is giving people the opportunity to understand that change is afoot. Right, we have a huge opportunity right now to really move the 13th congressional district forward, to move the state of Georgia forward. I may be a little biased in this, but I think by electing Michael Owens as the next congressman is a way to do that. Right, bringing in some new ideas, right, some bold, concrete plans about how we can move the district forward, how we can really look to bring new jobs, new industry, new innovation into the district. And I tell people that the 13th congressional district is what I call the gateway to the South. Right? Because we sit basically at the confluence of 285, 85, 75, 20. We have the world's airport in our backyard, and we have a railroad that runs from the state of New York down to Louisiana. So there's absolutely zero reason as to why, if anyone in the world wants to do business in the southeastern United States, they should be in the 13th congressional district. So I want to be that advocate. I want to be the person that goes out and talks to companies about bringing in fantastic, great jobs. Not just warehouse jobs or another corner job, but we want to capture some of those businesses that are going up north into. I was going to ask you that. Exactly. I want to go out and advocate for some of those. Look, I work in technology. I work in cyber, so I see the advent of how technology is changing the game of every single industry that we're in. And I also know those are very high-paying jobs, right? That I want to see more people in the 13th district be able to capture, and it's very possible. So we're looking at what's going on in Buckhead all the way up through Alpharetta. Jobs are going out the I-20 corridor, going east out towards Augusta now with the cybersecurity center, and even further south Georgia, right, where there's auto manufacturers and high auto tooling going on. We want to be able to capture that in the 13th. I think we're very positioned to be able to have really good jobs come into our district. I think it makes it logistically very good. We're very close to downtown Atlanta. So what we need is that leadership that's going to step up and really advocate for the people. I want to see us thrive. I have no doubt that we can, but it's going to take a champion and someone really willing to step up and do it. So part of the education piece, is really talking about what I call the mighty 13th. It is what I call the district, because I don't talk about what the district is now. I talk about it in the realm of what I see it as and what I know it can be. So I represent it as the mighty 13th, because I have no doubt that we could be a powerhouse within this, not only within Georgia Metro Atlanta. I think the 13th Congressional District should be a powerhouse in the southeastern United States. So that's part of what I want to make happen. So it is about educating people about my campaign, about the vision that I have us going forward, and then making sure people know when to go vote. Because, part of what happens here in Georgia is there's two different primary elections. So there's an election that's coming up on March 24th, which is the presidential election. So in that election on March 24th will be the election for the President of the United States. So you can vote for your preference, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, about who you want to see as your next president. But then after that, on May 19th, comes the election, the primary election, where my candidacy will be held out, and where for U.S. Senate, U.S. Congress, and then all the House and state races will be on May 19th as well.
Well, I used to be a poll worker, and I know people get confused.
Yes.
So let's go over that again.
Okay.
On March 24th,
yes,
that is the primary.
For the presidential primary.
Presidential only.
Yes.
So there you basically get two options to vote, either as a Republican or a Democrat.
Correct. You get to pull a ballot, right? If they ask which ballot would you like to pull, it'll be the Democratic ballot or Republican ballot. Correct.
Then on May 19th,
yes,
is the state primary or general?
It's the general primary. So the one on March 24th is the presidential primary. And then on May 19th, we have the general primary. In that election, you will have a Democratic ballot, which most people out there should be pulling. You will have a Republican ballot, and then you will have a nonpartisan ballot. Now, I caution people on a nonpartisan ballot, which, as you know, as being a poll worker, because a nonpartisan ballot will only have nonpartisan races on it, which will mainly be your judicial races. However, those same races will be on the Republican and the Democratic ballot as well. So I caution people, make sure that when they ask you what ballot you want, for the most part, you're going to choose a Republican ballot or a Democratic ballot. That nonpartisan ballot will only have nonpartisan candidates on it. So make sure you choose that Republican or Democratic ballot.
And also on the Republican or Democratic ballot, you have the local and state option to vote. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. There will be, so on our upcoming election, you will see races such as mine for U.S. Congress. You will see United States Senate ballot election. So those would basically be the two federal races you will see for U.S. Congress and U.S. Senate. But then you will see those that are running for office for the state level races, right? Your state house, your state Senate race, and then some of your county races as well. Yeah, county commission chair, and then you will see as well the races for the judicial races for your district.
Yeah. The reason I mention that, because I worked for 10 years. In my opinion, is a lot of time people come to vote, they only really have one or two candidates at top that they are interested in. Then when it comes time to vote for the rest of them, they either don't vote or they just flip a coin and vote.
That's right.
We want to try to ask people to be informed when they come to vote.
That is definitely true. Down ballot races, we always say vote down, vote the entire ballot, right? You start at the top, but work your way down. I used to tell people when I was chairman, start at the bottom and work your way up. And the reason I'd say that is because it kind of forces people to look at their local candidates, right? Who is my candidate that's running for school board? Who's my candidate that's running for county commission? Know those local races, because chances are you're going to know who those top of the ballot candidates are because you've heard them somewhere before. So start at the bottom and work your way up. I know with the electronic ballots now you can't really do that. But what I mean is know as much as possible who they all are. You can go to the Secretary of State's website and be able to find out and get a sample ballot for who all the candidates will be. If you go to the Secretary of State's website, it will be on there, and just take a look, right, and search out, know who your candidates are. Go to their websites, do a quick little research on them. Be informed voters, right? I mean, that's I'm going to be biased and tell people to go vote for Michael Owens for Congress, but yeah, be informed about who those candidates are, what they stand for, what their track records are, right, what they've done in the community, and really, my preference is to make sure people are a good fit for the office they're running for, and that some people, I talk to voters every single day, and sometimes they really care about education, or they really care about healthcare, or they really care about roads and infrastructure. So, I tell them what motivates you. That's right. Really the thing. What motivates you to go vote? Research those candidates and then get out there and vote. It's important.
So tell us about other platform plans you have for your platform.
Yeah, my platform as a whole, I try to be as inclusive as possible, what I call a people-focused campaign. We really started again with the healthcare issue, then from there with the social and civil justice, right, which I think is important that we have to talk about. These issues that are really hitting people at home. Increasing the minimum wage, and I think is something we have to do. I was talking to someone yesterday about how we have to make sure we're doing it, and there are those that are out there that say, well, someone can just go back to school and get a master's degree or bachelor's degree, or they can just learn a trade. And I said, yes, that's possible, but it does not exclude us from the need of raising the minimum wage, because the fact of the matter is, hotels are still going to need cleaning services, right? Schools are still going to need teachers, aides, and janitors. So these roles are still going to exist. And the thing about it is, as far as I'm concerned, anybody that's working a full-time job, any grown man or woman that's working a full-time job, should earn enough to be able to, put a roof over their head, put food on their table, transportation, basic health needs. These are things that are basic human dignity, no matter what job role you have, And I remember used to talk to some older folks, and they said, be proud of your job, no matter what that job is. And if you're a janitor, be a janitor. But what I want to do is give you the opportunity to be a janitor with dignity, and make sure that you're earning enough to be able to take care of those things that you need to. We talk about clean air, clean water. Make sure we're taking care of this planet. It's the only one we got. So we need to make sure that we are not cutting corners. I think far too often, in this corporate need to continue to make more profits, I think a lot of corporations sometimes cut corners, or sometimes do what may not be best for the community or the air and water in order to turn a profit, and that's wrong. Again, we've got to make sure, for our sake, for everyone else's, that we got clean air, to breathe, we got clean water to drink, not only for now, but for generations to come. So, I want to make sure we're doing those things. I'm proud to have an endorsement from the Sunrise Movement, which is an organization of youth. They're high schoolers, they're college age kids, and they realize the importance of climate change, and to make sure that, we're investing in things like solar, and wind and things that's going to be around for a long, long time, but that we start to build, our industry infrastructures around those things. So I want to make sure, that's part of the conversation of what we're talking about, because again, as we start to go into other industries and work to bring other industries in, I'm a big fan of solar, right? I want to make it possible we can have, solar panels on homes across the Atlanta area, that we're generating our own power, that comes directly from the sun as well.
Well, I was thinking along the lines of creating jobs, because some of the old jobs are going away. Manufacturing and those type jobs have disappeared, and so bringing in new jobs that pay a rate that's livable.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. Again,
how do you address that?
So it's two pronged. So first and foremost, is about being the advocate I was talking about before, about bringing those jobs into the district and going out. Part of it is selling it, right? Making sure that these Fortune 500 companies and other companies from around the country and around the world know about the 13th district and the things that we can bring to the table, so we can start bringing those jobs in. The other thing we got to focus on is education, right? So I've got an educational platform that focuses on that, to make sure that we're raising the bar when it comes to education, and focus that within our district. Then number one, we've got to make sure that we find a way to keep more money in our teachers' pockets, to pay our teachers more, to make sure we're getting, I would like to call career teachers, right? Teachers, kind of like back in the day when I grew up, when you grew up, that, teachers were 20, 30, 40 years in the field, and they were really good and crafted about the jobs they do. The problem we have now is, teachers aren't being paid enough to stick around. That's a lot of times that's the bottom line. So, we've got to make sure that we have that we create the teaching environment to where it's a career that people want to go into, and that ultimately they're comfortable staying in. And I think that we got to find more ways to put more money into schools, to build newer schools, to fund our teachers, fund our programs, right? To make sure that, our kids can go on field trips. They can, be able to bring people in to the schools to brighten our kids' minds, because we're also in a global economy now, right?
We are.
So we've got to make sure that, our kids are not only competing with other kids from across town, they're competing with kids from around the world. So we got to make sure our kids are up for that challenge as well. I think that's part of it. Student loan debt along that. We're creating, a situation now where our kids are graduating from school. There are two things about that. We've collectively been pushing kids, I think, to go to 4-year schools and saying, hey, you've got to do this, you got to do this. And they come out with an enormous amount of debt. At the same time where jobs are scarce, number one, and number two, they're not paying that much. I was talking to a school administrator the other day, and she was talking about the fact that her son has graduated college, and he moved back home. And I don't think the mom nor the son actually wants them to cohabitate and live there in the same house. But the fact of the matter is, even with a college degree, he cannot afford to live on his own and pay for his, pay for rent, for insurance, for a car. He literally cannot make enough money. We are talking about someone who has a college degree. So I think, the old days of saying, hey, go out there and get a college degree and everything is going to be fine and you're going to be great. That's not the case anymore.
No, it's not. And that's on a state level. Do you think we should put more emphasis on technology skills, on a skill job rather than a 4-year degree?
I think we have to do both, because again, I think we're in a global economy, and we got to do two things. We have to continue to push the envelope with technology and make sure that we have Americans graduating from college that can go into these highly skilled technology jobs day one. Right. I see this a lot of times, even, through my field of work in cybersecurity, where, I think we could be doing a lot more to bring a lot more Americans into these roles. A lot of times we're having to bring people in from other countries because that skill set isn't there. I think, myself as congressman, whatever I could do in the halls of Congress, I would want to make sure that we put a full effort into making sure that we're training our next generation to take on these jobs that we're currently having outsourced right now. The second thing to that is do more and invest in career academies, do more for technical and vocational jobs, because I also believe that the other side of that is we have to have brick masons, we have to have plumbers, we have to have HVAC engineers and people. That's also a clear pathway to entrepreneurship. Most entrepreneurs that get started in this country are by people with trades. They aren't people graduating from 4-year liberal arts schools, right? So, but one problem I think that we have is we spent a generation or two telling kids that if you don't go to a 4-year school and graduate, you're a failure. So we need to stop that. We need to start putting more of an emphasis in, if college isn't, if a 4-year school isn't right for you, go get a 2-year degree. Go get an apprentice role. Join our unions, right? And learn a craft, learn a trade, so you can be readily employable and go out and not, putting on a suit and tie and going to office is not for everyone. Some people want that flexibility, they want to do other opportunities and other jobs, and we should be welcome of that as a community, and give those people opportunities within our communities to thrive.
Well, that's my thoughts also. And since I'm a HBCU graduated, I went to Savannah State, and do you think that HBCU should be funded adequately so they can prosper also?
Yeah. Well, I'm an HBCU alum as well. I went to North Carolina A&T State University. Go Aggies, up in Greensboro, North Carolina. A storied history university. Started, the sit-in movement, February 1st. Yeah. Example like that. HBCUs carry such a history in this country. We provided some of the first doctors and lawyers and engineers of color in this country. And I do think there's a vital importance for HBCUs to continue today. So, I think we should continue funding them. I think we should look into our own alumni structure to make sure that we are kind of giving back and supporting our own respective schools. I think that I love the idea of having these young students now, high school athletes, wanting to go to HBCUs and play, collegiate level sports. I think it's fantastic. I think if you're a 4 or 5 star athlete, and you're a young black male, I will tell you right now, go to North Carolina A&T. I want to go down to Savannah State. Go to Morehouse. Go to Grambling. Right? They're fantastic schools that are out there. We want to push to make sure you can get the visibility. Right? That is important. I can understand why a 4 or 5 star recruit wants to go to Duke or Carolina, right, or Kansas. They want to get that TV time. They want to get the sports facilities and all the things that come along with it. And ultimately, they want to make sure they get an opportunity to play at the next level. I get that. But going to an HBCU is a fundamental, unique education. And in saying that, as someone who's gone to school, in the ACC with Georgia Tech, right? Who's gone to an Ivy League school at Harvard, and who's gone to HBCU. There's nothing like an education experience you get at an HBCU. So I want to continue to support our HBCUs. I want to continue to make sure that we have robust ROTC programs at those schools. I want to make sure that our HBCUs are sending kids to West Point or on to becoming officers after they graduate, and on to having great careers of their own. So I'm a big fan of HBCUs. I'm happy you brought that up. I know that when I was on campus at A&T, we had a good ROTC program. We had a lot of veterans that went, right, that did 4 years and came out and decided to make an HBCU their home. So let's keep supporting them. It's important.
Okay, thank you. And we want to let our audience know you're listening to WCEG Talk Radio. It's Veterans Today. You can call in and join us at 678-619-1402. And I'm speaking with Michael Owen, a Democratic candidate for Congress for the 13th Congressional District. Mr. Owen, Well, what's next on your plate?
I think, so as you mentioned at the top of the show, today was down at the Capitol, so we officially qualified, so I'll be on the ballot on May 19th. The next thing is really just getting out and continue to talk to people about these issues. You know, I have to talk about a little bit about, this Fairness Act when it comes to wages and pay. You know, I think we still seeing situations where women and minorities are not earning the same pay for the same work. So that's something I think is important. Look, the 13th Congressional District is a minority-majority district. It's mainly composed of black and brown, but it's really a fight for equity and equality. We want to make sure those are things that we're bringing to the table. I usually talk about the neglect that we have, and when I talk about neglect, it's usually centered around our veterans, our children, and our elderly, right? To make sure that we're investing in those areas because that's our community, right? So we need to do that. We need to make sure that we're doing all those things to really lift the community up. Again, it's a people-powered campaign, so we want to make sure that we're doing things that are representing the people. When I'm elected, the people or the things I'm going to be beholden to are the people within the district, right? I'm counting on the people of the district putting me in office, and that's going to be who I'm beholden to, not corporations, but to the individuals, up and down Tar Boulevard, and those on Veterans Memorial, those out on Chapel Hill, out in Douglasville, those folks down on 314. That's what this race is about. I think it's a long time coming that we have a congressman. I was telling people, I've met people that says, I like our incumbent, and I said, I'm not asking you to stop liking them. That's absolutely fine. What I'm asking you to do is look at what we're going to have and the opportunities that we're going to have going forward. A lot of times it's just like in track and field that 400 relay. Right? The person who starts that, we've only had one congressman in the 13th district ever.
I didn't know that.
The district was created in 2002. We've had the same congressman ever since then. So I like to tell people it's like a 4x400. The person that starts that race isn't the person that ends, right? And the reason it's 4 is because that person that start off, they can't get all the way around running full speed. So the person runs as hard and fast as they can, they're going to get tired. And when they do, they pass off that baton, right? Sure. So I'm ready to take up that baton and start running myself, right? So that's what we have to look at this as. We have to look at this as, it's a long-term effort that we have to better in our community and make sure we're uplifting and providing things that the people need. The way that we're going to do that now is passing that baton to the next generation so we can run with that, and go ahead and take that next stage of where we need to go within the district and the country.
So as you mentioned at the top of the show, the district is very large. What do you mean? Very large,
yeah. It's 700,000 people. I think we have over 500,000 registered voters. And it covers a very large district. It covers from most of South Cobb, all of Douglas County, northern Fayette County, all of South Fulton, most of Clayton County, Riverdale, Jonesboro, Lovejoy, and then it covers Henry County, most of Stockbridge, all the way down to Hampton, down by the racetrack, right? So it's a wide, diverse district. It's a lot of area to cover for sure, a lot of ground to get to. But again, it all makes up the west and southern parts of the Metro Atlanta. So we're squarely talking about we are part of the economic engine within Atlanta. We're part of this metro area, and we want to make sure that those same opportunities that are coming to other parts of the metro area, that we get those within the 13th district as well.
Yeah, I would think so, because I would say with that bigger geographic area in population, the opportunities for growth should be there.
Oh, it's huge, right? I mean, I'm watching what's happening out in Douglasville now, and trying to have some growth out there. Douglasville just got their first bus service this past July, and there's things as congressman that I want to do. I want to make sure we work to expand our public transportation system. I know in Clayton County we've had issues with public transportation in the past. I want to make sure we shore that up. I want to extend MARTA if possible. I'd love to see mass transit go out west, out the I-20 corridor out of Douglasville. I would love to see mass transportation go from the airport down through, Riverdale, down into Lovejoy, all the way down to the racetrack down in Hampton if possible. I think, transportation, people's capability to move around is going to be key. One of those things that I want to do as Congressman is make sure, because the district is so large and expansive, I think we need more than just 2 offices. Right now, we only have 2 congressional offices in the district. We have one in Smyrna, which is kind of the northern part of the district, and the other one we have down in Jonesboro, Clayton County. What I want to do is make sure we have more than just 2 offices. I think, we can definitely do 3. I would like to have, potentially even have 4 congressional offices in the district, because I want to make sure people have more access to their congressmen, to the congressional staff, and make sure we can kind of expand that out. I also want to make sure we have what I've called our Congressional Liaison Committee, because I know as a congressman going back and forth to D.C., it's hard to stay on top of everything we've got going on, but we can by empowering people. Remember, I'm someone who's worked in the community for a long time now, right? So I know people all throughout the district and all 6 counties, and I know the hardworking people that are doing a lot of really good things within their own communities, having nonprofits, right, and serving on local boards. And what I want to do is give those people in those roles an opportunity to serve on a Congressional Liaison Committee.
So define the Congressional Liaison Committee.
So the Congressional Liaison Committee basically serves as the community outreach within the district. So the way it works is we have 6 counties throughout the 13th congressional district. We have 12 people that serve within each county. So within each county, you're going to have 12 people that's going to serve on the Congressional Liaison Committee, and these people are going to come from all walks of life, right? We have teachers, we have veterans, we have elected officials, we have members that work for the post office, educators, and they all basically come together to talk about issues and things that are happening in the community and ways that we can better the community, whether it's through economic development, healthcare issues, whatever those needs of the communities may be. That becomes a communication tool. So when we're doing public town halls, which I think is vitally important, I don't think we've had nearly enough town halls in the past that we should. So I want to make sure at least every single quarter we're doing town halls. The liaison committee is going to play a strong role in that, because it's going to be liaison committee is going to be help putting those on and making sure that we're bringing people from the community to talk about these issues that we have.
Yeah, town halls in these times seem to be issue that people avoid for some reason. I mean, my veteran group, and also I volunteer with AARP, and we deal with town halls meetings, and to be nice about it, most of them are for in between now. There's a tendency not to have them.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on that?
And since you brought it up, yeah, it's we haven't had a town hall, a congressional level town hall in the 13th district in over a decade. It's been December 2009, I think, and again, people can go fact check that, but all I can tell you is about what I plan on doing as a congressman. And I understand sometimes it can be tough, but we have to have that dialogue. A town hall is the premier way that people are able to come together in the district and voice their concerns collectively. It's also a way that whatever elected official can pull people together to talk about issues of the day and things that are happening. And look, with all the things that's been happening in Congress, in Washington, D.C., in the White House, over the last several years, boy, we should have had a whole lot of things to talk about. We should have a lot of really, really juicy and informative town halls. And unfortunately, we haven't had any. So, as a constituent myself, and as someone who, again, was the chair of the Democratic Party in the largest county in the 13th district, not having a town hall has left me feeling somewhat muted, right? Not having an opportunity to talk to my congressman and voice my opinion with my peers, with fellow constituents. So I can tell you, as congressman, I pledge to have at least one town hall every single quarter. That's whether I'm in Washington, D.C. or not. I want to use my liaison committee to be able to do that. work to be able to help. I've already talked to people throughout the district that want to be a part of the liaison committee. We're doing that work now somewhat within our campaign because we want to make sure that when I'm elected, we can start ground on day one with our committee, because it's vitally important that we talk. I was speaking with some state representatives, county commissioners, city council people just this morning, and talk about the need that we have within the district to be able to have a connection to what's going on in Washington. And we don't have that today. It does lack. So, again, I can tell you about what I plan on doing as congressman is to make sure that we have that connection between Washington, D.C. and what's going on locally, in our city councils and our county commissions with our state representatives. Because, again, a lot of good people doing a lot of good work on the ground, but we've got to make sure that's elevated. So, our congressional liaison committee is just a way to have people with, congressional level input in local community meetings, right? At HOA meetings. Again, I want to make sure that we are hearing firsthand what's going on in the communities. And I also realize that I can't be everywhere at one time, but I can make sure that I'm empowering others to get out in the community and making sure that, that we're down in Hampton, and we're in Fayetteville and talking about these issues. The Austell Community Task Force having meetings. I think they deserve to have a congressman or a member of the congressional staff show up at their meetings and hear about what's going on, on in their neighborhoods. I think it's vitally important. So I'm proud of, the idea to have this liaison committee, and I can't wait to get it started.
Okay. My next question that is, I have a nonprofit veteran group, and I deal with a lot of the state representatives, senators, and on veteran issues. So, what do you think should be the relationship between the congressman in the different state senators and representatives?
Yeah, I think it should be a very good relationship. I think it should be a two-way relationship that should be ongoing, right? Especially times like now, right? Where, session is going on right now. There's a lot of things happening. In the State House, it's only 40 days. So a lot of things happen really, really fast that's going on. But I think that relationship should be one that's year-round, right? I think we should really build. And again, as congressman, part of my role, what I want to do is I want to empower our state representatives. I want to empower our state senators, and not necessarily about what's going on in the under the Gold Dome, but they do a lot of work year round. I understand a lot of people, they look at the state rep and state senator and go, well, that's a part-time job. It's only a 40-day year session. But let me tell you, I'm close friends with a lot of state representatives and state senators. I'm happy to have state senators, state reps that are supporting me in my campaign. But I talk to them, on a weekly basis, and I know the gap that exists. I know that they don't have relationship with Congress, and sometimes it is a natural gap that starts to form there because the work that they're doing outside of Congress, outside of the State House, again, they're at these community meetings. They're speaking at these different events. So in a lot of ways, they can help with what's going on and help the congressional office understand what's happening. But when you have that isolation, when it's siloed, you don't have that relationship. That's an opportunity that I see firsthand from working with state senators and, from my role as chair, seeing where those gaps are. So part of what I want to do as congressman is work to fill in those gaps. I want to be on speed dial with our state senators and state Congress and our state reps. So when they have an issue that's going on, when when they see something happening in the community that's a federal issue, right? They've got me on speed dial saying call. Because one thing that I've seen a lot is a lot of people don't actually always understand the role of a congressman versus the role of a state rep versus the role of a county commissioner, right? And they're very different roles and they handle different issues that go on. So I may talk about, raising the minimum wage and talk about, making sure that every person in our district has health care. And those are going to be different conversations than your county commissioner is going to have about what my taxes are for my house, right? Or making sure that we have sidewalks in our neighborhood, which I've been fighting for as well. So I love those. My best community meetings that I see is when you have your congressman standing beside your state representative, standing beside your county commissioner, standing beside your city councilman and mayor. That is powerful. That means you have representation up and down the governmental sphere of influence, right? I want the same thing for the 13th. Right, when we're talking to state representatives and we're talking to mayors, I'm standing beside them now, so I want to stand beside them as congressmen as well.
So, with that type of structure, do you see good attendance at the meetings?
Oh, yes, for sure. I think, people want to hear from their elected officials, right? People want to know what they're doing and what's going on. And I have no doubt, that with a larger congressional input and attendance throughout our district, we can help a lot. I always tell people that, one of the things about a congressperson, and I've seen, and worked closely with a lot of Congress people, is that they have this unique ability that when they call someone, the other end usually answers the phone. Right. So I usually say that, a phone call that goes unmade is opportunity unrealized. Right. So having the opportunity, for a nonprofit that's doing good work in the district, a lot are facing a similar challenge. I've worked with a lot of nonprofits. I've started nonprofits, and I know that things can be a challenge, but when you're doing good work in the community, if we can partner on things, I would love to be able to partner with a lot of these nonprofits in the district and help, whether it may be with funding, just helping making the right contact with the right person, because we know a lot of times it's just about making that connection.
Well, that's an issue is a lot of time you can get in this, you start off with your county commission, you can get in contact with that person, but you kind of need to be able to tie it all together.
Yes.
Your state representative, you may be, then you get to a point where someone doesn't return your call.
Yes.
And that kind of breaks the chain.
It does, and sometimes that's at the most critical moments. Some of the most critical aspects of what's needed. So again, I'm prepared to step into that gap. I want to make sure that, again, those phone calls that need to be made can be made. The calls that are made are actually answered, and that our staff, as a congressman, I want to make sure that my staff is engaged in the community at these events, because again, I'm running a complete grassroots, people-powered campaign. And there's a reason for doing that, is because I think that is where the most impact can be made. That's also where I see, most of the struggle going on, and so we can work to fix this. There's great, again, nonprofits like you just mentioned, I know is doing a lot of this work. And in some ways, they're covering the gap for the lack of engagement that we have in our federal government right now.
Well, that's been pointed out by, for an example, AARP has some numbers about how much nonprofits and volunteers are really filling in the gap.
Yes.
For the lack of funding that we are getting by donations, by doing voluntary work.
Yeah.
Things like that.
We're seeing a lot of that. I mean, in a lot of different areas across the board. We're seeing that a lot in education now, where I know of organizations that are created simply to take kids on field trips, because the school system, for whatever reason, they the kids aren't getting that exposure they need. So you have nonprofits, again, kind of stepping into that gap, with after school care, with feeding kids after school that may need it, by putting kids, like I said, giving them field trips. Elderly care, we're seeing that a lot. Veteran services, like the one you have, really fills in that gap a lot of times, provide these services that the government really should be. And that's multiple different levels. But again, I look at the congressional office as that linchpin, right, to make sure that, and if it's not the federal office, because again, within your district, that congressional office is that place to go to. is that number to call. You're looking for the congressman and his staff to help point people in the right directions about what's going on. So I want to do that. I think we can do that through expanding the number of offices that we have, as I mentioned, in the district. We can do that by making sure that we host quarterly town halls. As a matter of fact, I just took a pledge to do that a few days ago. It's a pledge that candidates take literally to host town halls at least one quarter. And again, in today's day and age, being in Washington, D.C. is not an excuse for not having a town hall, because, we have this thing called technology now and the internet. So, I could very easily be at my congressional office in Washington, D.C. and still be able to host a town hall. So I look forward to bringing more technology into the office, to making sure that we're utilizing our outreach through our social media platforms to bring more information. And I can't not talk about this because it's brought up in every conversation that I have running for Congress in the 13th Congressional District. And it is about the job fair and it's about the health fair, right? And my stance on it is this. This is year 2020. Health fairs and job fairs have all had their place, but we're at a point in time now where we've got to go far beyond those one-day events, right? Just like being in Washington, D.C. is not an excuse for not giving a town hall. No one in this district should have to wait 365 days to get their blood pressure checked or find out what's going on with their eyes, they have a glaucoma, or find out if they have diabetes, right? They should be able to do this on a consistent basis when they need access to those checks. The same way with the job, right? I mean, going to a job fair once a year to try to ask someone or pull together 100 companies, that may sound impressive on paper, but there are thousands of employers that are out there that are looking for work. We want to make sure we're bringing in more jobs into the district. Most jobs I know now, people apply for online. They do not go to a conference center to apply for a job. It's ineffective, it's inefficient, and quite frankly, it is not the way of the future. We've got to be able to move forward, not backwards in this district. So, I'm not about having job fairs. I mean, there's still a place for it, limited. I mentioned earlier about the ex-offender job fair, which was highly successful, but it's because it was focused on a particular need. It could be in a particular sector, but just these, widespread job fairs that really get blown up into these extravaganzas is not what we need. We need jobs to come into the district, people that jobs are matched to their skill sets and their needs. And when it comes to healthcare, we need to make sure that every single person in the district actually has healthcare, that we don't have to, corral people into a conference center or into a high school gym once a year and bring volunteers into place. We need to make sure that when people need access to quality healthcare, they can go get it that day when they need it. I can't imagine being someone without health insurance, and going to one of these job fairs this year or next year or whatever, and find out that I actually have a debilitating health issue. And then I wake up that next morning, Herman, and I don't have anywhere to go. The lights are gone. The stage is gone. The banners and all the show is gone, and we have nowhere to turn to. We need to make sure people in this district, people across the state, people across this country have health care when they need it, and health fairs are not going to solve that problem.
Well, I've thought about health fairs and job fairs, and I think in today's technology, people should be made educated and made aware of it on an ongoing basis,
on a
daily basis.
Yes.
And that brings up another issue with technology, with the information highway. I mean, you're one of those guys. I worked in communication for 40 years. So how do we have some different people at different ages, people just not interested in technology, that really doesn't have the skills to, for example, let's take the VA to deal with e-benefits, a My Health Vet. How do we upgrade those people, their skills?
I think that's always been a challenge, but with every new technology innovation, right? Going back to the Industrial Revolution, there's always technology going to continue to move forward, right? Technology of the 80s, when we were first putting up cell towers, right? When we were first running the first internet circuits, right? It's changed since then, right? Now the talk is going to the cloud, right? And facial recognition and biometrics and everything that's going on. So there's a continuous change in technology. One of the reasons I love the field so much is that we do have this constant innovation that's going on, and when innovation is done best, it's done best to help society move forward, right? And so that's the same way we have to address it, when we talk about the VA, I mentioned it earlier, how we had a backlog of hundreds of thousands of records and claims that were waiting. The single largest innovation we could do with that is to get those out of those file cabinets and put them and digitize them and put them on disk, right? So we can actually have them, so it can be searchable, so we can make a backup redundant copy. I remember when I was searching for my father's records when I was about to go to school, and I was looking for VA benefits and state benefits for veterans and children of veterans. I was looking for my father's DD-214 and for his service record book, and come to find out I was involved in that fire in St. Louis, right? And a lot of those records just simply don't exist anymore. So I was looking at for benefits for me, but these are live stories of our veterans.
They are, and to move forward is to the grassroots, to people that come to my meetings to apply for benefits, and e-benefits is one of the systems they use, and to be honest about it, they don't have the skills to go on e-benefits.
So when people ask and talk about, we need more money within the Veterans Administration, right? The VA needs more money. My thing with that is, yes, but where are we putting that funding? Right. So, as far as I'm concerned, the VA needs to partner with nonprofits like your organization, with many others around. So we need funding to get at the grassroots, at the ground level. Right. So when we're having people that are trying to fill out these forms, we need people that can support them on the ground. Right. We need helplines. When we need people that are in distress, we need the 1-800 number is fantastic. I'm happy it's there. Right. We need the Veterans Crisis Line, but you also need someone local that's down the street that you can reach out to, and they need to be funded. We need to make sure we're spending money on VA transition homes, right? We need to make sure that when veterans are coming out, that these organizations that are out there to help vets transition, they need to be funded. And they need to be funded through the VA, through the federal government, because that's where the rubber meets the road. And so, my thing about that is not so much, trying to teach, how technology works in some days to someone who that's not their interest, right? If that's not their interest, it's not their interest, fine. But they shouldn't lack the access of services. Right? Because they can't go, because when you say, hey, you know what, here's the website address, go out to it and go fill it out. So that way, the government can say, oh, we've given you access to it. You have access to it. Well, what if I don't have the internet at home? Right? What if I do because my grandson has it, but I never get on the computer? I'm not going to go to a website. I don't use email, so I can't email someone. So that's what I mean about what are we going to do with the resources that we're spending. We need to make sure these resources are actually put into organizations or build out that infrastructure through the VA so we can have it on the ground. We need to look at our commissaries and our PXs. I still think that should be expanded out. To make sure that our veterans and their spouses have access to those, I think is important that we do. I think that when we're looking at situations as far as healthcare, there's issues now where if you've seen what's happening, where the military is cutting back on services that veterans and spouses are able to get through on-base services, right? So I continue to see these cuts in areas when supposedly we all love veterans and we all support veterans. We're all there for veterans, and anytime there's a parade or anytime there's a ribbon cutting, and unfortunately, anytime that there is a tragedy, there's a line of politicians a mile long, and I'm just going to be honest with this, right? And that bothers me, because when there are no lights, when there are no cameras going on, where are those people? And I'm not particularly even talking about my race right now. I'm just talking about in general, right? We talk about these veteran services and what we have to do. We have to remember also is that because we've been at war so long, post 9/11, a lot of times when we think about veterans, we think of people like my father and my grandfather and those that were in World War II and in Korea and in Vietnam. Right? That's typically what we think about, right? We don't turn our attention much to the post 9/11 veterans, right? And those that were in Afghanistan and those that were in Iraq. And I think, we're creating veterans every single day right now, right? With different challenges and different needs, where war fighting is different from when it was in Korea and Vietnam. So, the ramifications of IEDs, and the traumatic brain injuries that are going on, where people are coming home now, whereas before, unfortunately, they may have came home in a body bag before. They're coming home alive now, but maybe missing certain parts.
Exactly.
They're coming home now and they're having problems dealing with the stresses and triggers of what's going on. So we also have to modernize the VA, not only technology, but I think we have to modernize it in how we view VA services and what those VA services look like. Because the VA that's been used to treating people that are in their golden ages, shall we say, you also have to find a way to treat veterans now who are 25, 26, or 30 and 35, who have a life ahead of them. So their needs and concerns as veterans are not the same as our Korean vets and our Vietnam veterans right now. So the VA has a challenge because they have to span, I say between 25 and 125, and those different those different veteran of different eras have different needs. So we have to expand those services out to cover all those needs. And, the needs of a veteran that's 25 right now or a veteran that's 35, taking a hard look at those services. What do those veterans need? Because that's going to where your transition services are going to come in, right?
Exactly. And this is not related to your campaign either, but the funding for those services and also the management of the VA hospital, for example, the one here in Atlanta has changed director, has 4 directors in 5 years. When you're dealing with a culture like that,
that's right.
How do you develop any type of consistency as for treating the patient, which is the customer, which is the veteran?
Accountability. It has to start and end with accountability.
And one thing that Congress does have is the budget.
Is the budget, appropriations. Exactly. Yeah, I think it's got to be accountability because we have to hold things to a higher standard. And when I read that story about the gentleman who ultimately, unfortunately, wound up dying, but had the ant bites all over him. And of course I think to myself, I remember my father being in the VA hospital, and I wonder what type of treatment was this veteran receiving to where he was literally covered from head to toe in insect bites, and no one noticed. No one took the time to give this man the care and treatment that he deserved, and it happened at a veterans hospital.
Exactly.
Right. Herman, I'll say again, it goes back to accountability, right? And expectation. We have to expect more, right? We have to expect more from our government. We have to have accountability that's in place. We have to put in a structure that, look, here's my take on this. The VA should be at the cutting edge of medical improvement, medical technology, and medical care. They should employ the best doctors and best nurses and best specialists in this country. I will always advocate for that. I think it's vitally important that we do. I think, the VA, I see the VA hospitals as teaching institutions, right? Where we could bring in other doctors to learn from the best about what's going on. to look at certain injuries and certain issues that may not be as widely seen in the civilian areas. So when you have those veterans and those troops who have those issues, great opportunity to learn. But it's got to go back to accountability. I want to see the VA thrive. I have a lot of confidence in the fact that it could, but you got to get some stability in there as well, right? We have to have some leadership in place that's going to value, not lip service, that's truly going to value the role of the Veteran Administration and make sure they have the capability to do what they need to do.
I totally agree, and I also agree with what you said earlier. Is we have more people that are veterans that are running for office. So hopefully that's good, because veterans, someone with veteran experience, I would think would have a more positive outlook on taking care of veterans.
Oh, without a doubt. One of the first things I did when I started my campaign was we launched a Owens for Congress Veterans Council. So we have a council of veterans. As you can see, I kind of like this idea of pooling together expertise, right, and ideas of people and bring them together. So we started a veteran council for a few reasons. Number one is just a camaraderie that veterans all know and understand. And as a Marine, I'll give any soldier or sailor a hard day just because that's what we do, right? You're not worth your salt if you don't, I don't think. But being able to bring the veterans together from across the landscape of service careers, across MOSs, from different eras, I think it was important. So I brought the group of veterans together to talk about policy issues. So when I'm talking on my campaign about my platform around veterans issues, I kind of formulated, then I went to fellow veterans. I go, what do you guys think about this, right? Transition of services. So if a service member, if you're in the military, if you're in the Army or the Air Force, and you've got a CDL, right? You're driving. Let's say you're about driving big trucks. You're in Motor T. You should be able to come out and continue practicing your trade, right, as a truck driver in a civilian life. I don't see a need to go back to school to go to CDL, training. You've been driving a semi for 8 years in the Marine Corps, right, down in Motor T. This duality, right, and the fact that now I've got to come out. Oh God, now I got to go to school and get trained to do something I've been doing literally all over the world.
Well, that's true. So what is your proposal?
So the proposal around that is really simple. If you have been certified through United States military in a like service that is certified in the civilian world, that certification you get in the military should automatically transfer over to the civilian life. So again, like a truck driver, for example, right? If you're certified to drive trucks in the military, you should be able to get the equivalent of that CDL license when you get out, right? Same thing with a nurse. If you are a nurse in the military and you serve domestically and you have the qualifications that you've gone through the adequate training to be a nurse in the Army or Marine Corps, Army or Navy, basically, then you should be able to come out and serve as a nurse with your military credentials.
So how do you, because I have some experience dealing with it, so how do you get a public institution or a corporation to accept that?
Yeah. So it really is about raising the awareness around that. And again, having someone in Congress that's willing to take up those fights and go talk about it, right? Through hearings, through legislation, through bringing people together and go, how do we do this, right? Because we want to make sure we do it the right way as well, right? We also want to make sure there's that public-private partnership to make sure that we are lining up likes for likes and making sure that, we're not cutting any corners with people's health, safety, or training, right? But to make sure. But, just like you and I both, we've gone through military schools as well as private schools. And I can tell you when I went through comm school, as you did, my undergraduate from North Carolina A&T is in communications, computer and electronic engineering. So I know that when I went to 29 Palms and I was in comm school, that training that I got was almost identical to the bachelor's college degree training that I got in engineering. So so I know that there's a lot of like for likes there, you know, and I know guys in Motor T, right, that are working, that are mechanics that are working on these, you know, they should be able to come out and they should be able to go to Toyota or Ford or anywhere else, right, and carry that credential right along with them. So it is going to take collaboration. It is going to take some work with the private institutions as well as the certification bodies from the civilian world to make sure we can start matching these up.
Well, actually, are you aware of Vetlanta?
Yes.
Yes, they are advocating for that.
Yes,
they're not.
You know what they need? A member of Congress that's willing to get on their side and push. That's what they need to have happen. So have those folks give me a call because, you know, yeah, and look, this isn't, the reason I know there's other people talking about it because this is not an isolated incident. This is not, you know, as a lot of legislation that comes up, this is not rocket science. Right? This isn't inventing something totally new. A lot of times it's about having the awareness and then having the courage to go out and speak about it, and having the willingness and the engagement, right, to get on board and talk about these things. Because again, my job is to make people's lives easier, more prosperous, you know, have more dignity and respect. You know, how do you go and you serve your country for 4, 8, however many years you serve, proud of the work you did, right? Commendations for the work that you did, you know, medals of valor for the work that you did. And then you come out of civilian life with no job prospects, right? Yeah. You know, so for all the great things that you did, struggling to find work, being certified, you know, whether it's on a piece of equipment or being able to, you know, be at the helm of, 40 people, 80 people, 100 people, or whatever, and then people to question your leadership skills, right? Or knowing that you can operate that piece of equipment because you've done it plenty of times in many countries around the world, but you don't have a civilian license, so you don't qualify for it. So you may, be on a construction site and you may only be qualified to literally dig ditches, or clean up the job site. When just 5 months earlier, you were driving that road grader, you were driving that backhoe. We've got to fix that.
Well, we do. And actually, I think corporate America want to, because when you come out in the military with those type skills, you spent years acquiring those skills.
Yes. And
there's no need for corporate America to have to retrain you.
That's right.
You have them, so part of the gap is the language, is the military lingo and job description, SOP is not the same as their job requirement.
That is true.
So that's an issue that to me can be readily addressed.
Yeah, again, that's just a matter of bringing people together and understanding what the end game is. And you're right. Look, let's face it. If you can create some corporate incentives, right? If you can show them how they can save money or how they can more quickly ramp someone up to do a job, I'm sure that would make them more readable to come to the table. But our goal and my goal is to have veterans employable and ready to go, not go through this period of getting out where they're feeling dejected and not sure what's going on, which happens to far too many veterans, and working to have a transition plan, right? I'll also, want to work with our military to make sure that we're doing a better job in transition services before you even get out. I was approached by someone, and it's been a while back now, but who told me about a friend of his that he served within the Army and had been deported and was in Mexico now. I don't know if you've talked about it on the show or not, but it is an issue. It's an issue that I've worked on in the past, that I've talked with Congressman Castro in California about. And it's this idea that veterans being deported, so... part of my...
We haven't talked about it, but we are aware of it.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
It's an issue that, again, when I first heard about it, I quite frankly didn't believe it, right? I thought the guy wasn't quite really sure what he was talking about. And I said, wait a minute, what do you mean? They found out? And the board's like, no, he actually served. He went through boot camp, served, and was honorably commissioned. Honorably decommissioned. And he still was was deported. So, long story short, come to find out, right, there are cases literally where people have served and later, for whatever reason, have gotten deported. I think that's deplorable. I think there's absolutely zero reason for that. So along with a comprehensive kind of immigration policy or platform that I have, you can go to the website and check out. I think it's important to talk about on this show that there are veterans that are being deported. And I do think that's wrong. And part of that, and what I brought up right now, is because of part of the veterans transition services. I do understand that, as a member of the military, you can go ahead and do your paperwork because, these aren't always people like cheating the system or skirting around the system. The military has actually enlisted people that they know are not citizens.
Exactly.
Right? So they clear the air here. They're not necessarily people that are sneaking into the military. These are people that's been recruited to come into the armed forces.
And have been in there for years.
Came in full service of duty and have honorably served this country. And then for whatever reason, after they got out, has been deported. My stance on this is once you have served, I'll probably go a step further, and I'll go to the point of once you graduated boot camp and you are declared serviceable, where you can be deployed anywhere in this world, and your life is on the line at that point in time. I think before you ship out anywhere, before you go to your first duty station, if you are not a United States citizen, you should be made one at that point, long before you ever even get out. Right? Yeah. I think as soon as you're deployable, and we all know what that means. At that point in time, I think you should, if you're not an American citizen, you should be sworn in as an American citizen at that point. And at any point in time afterwards, whether, and if it's unfortunate that you're killed in a line of duty, that, you should die with that American flag draped across your coffin because you've signed up, you've gone through the same things we have, and you've put your line and died for this country.
And you should have your entitlement, and I think your family should have.
You absolutely should. So there are a few Congress people that are out there that are pushing for that. I mentioned Representative Castro, but I want to help him in taking up that fight because I think any veteran that's willing to give his life for this country should make sure we do that. And that's part of making sure that we're treating our veterans right and making sure that we truly are the home of the free, or land of the free, home of the brave, and that we're doing those things that we really should do. So, I wanted to make sure I mentioned that on the show because I think it's important. I think a lot of people don't know that's actually happening. There's actually an enclave now down in Tijuana, Mexico, where veterans that have been deported are literally, kind of are encamped, waiting to come back. And, I've heard stories about, when they die, they can come back, and receive some military honors. But it's a disgrace, it's a dishonor.
It really is.
It's a dishonor to be literally kicked out of the country that you fought for. Now, I'm not saying that whatever they may have done to get them deported, they should be held accountable for. Right, and if they if they happen to have done some crime or something, yes, they should be held for their crime.
But that, to me, that should be a different situation.
That's a separate issue, right?
From what I understand, exactly, they are veterans. They just were discharged and then told they're no longer a citizen.
If they did not go through their citizenship paperwork and package and all that, it is completely possible that they can go through, be honorably discharged, still not be citizens, and be subject to deportation.
Yeah, and that's wrong.
Right, that's wrong. So, one of the things I'd look to do in Congress is to work on legislation that would change that, right, and make sure that if you're someone who served this country, you're an American. Right, if you worn our uniform, whether it's Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine, Coast Guard, National Guard, you deserve that right. You've earned that, and you should die with that right.
Let me give you a couple of announcements. Time is really getting away from us. The U.S. Navy Band will be in concert Saturday, March the 14th at Morehouse College. The time is 7 p.m. And this is sponsored by the VA Center in the Georgia, ARP, Georgia. Admission is free. And for more information, please call 404-321-6111, extension 2077, 6728. That's actually the VA number. So let me give it to you again. 404-321-611, extension 207728. This is the United States Navy Band in concert at Morehouse College on Saturday, March the 14th at 7 p.m. Admission is free. And it's, I understand, the Army Band was here 2 years ago, and it really was great. So please take this in. And I have one more announcement for Vietnam veterans. The Atlanta VA Community Based Clinic, which is the VA, the Arcadia, Arcadia Avenue VA, is providing Vietnam veteran certificates on March the 31st. So if you are a Vietnam era veteran, it's not that you put feet on the ground in Vietnam, but if you were in the military between June 1st, 1954 to May 7th, 1975, you are considered a Vietnam era veteran, and the VA will be providing veterans with honoring ceremony, providing you a certificate. The governor is scheduled to attend. And to get more information about this, please call 404-656-5933. You can actually go to the Georgia website, which is GAVET service at vs.state.ga.us. Let me give you that again. The website is GAVETSVC at vs.state.ga.us. And this program, the Vietnam Veteran Certificate Program, is about 4 years old. So a lot of us, I'm a Vietnam veteran, and a lot of us have received one. But if you're a Vietnam era veteran and you have not received yours, please call this number. And so as we time wind down, we will go back to Mr. Owens and tell us how you're going to win this thing.
You know, by having conversations with people, right? By people being ready for a change, ready for new leadership. So I'm looking forward to it. It's already been a great race. We've been running for about 8 months now. We've got a lot of support throughout the district from all 6 counties. I know people want to see a change. People want new leadership in place. We want to talk about these hard issues. We want to talk about these big structural changes that we need. I've been in this race. I was as a former chair of the Democratic Party in Cobb County and working with candidates and people throughout the district, and really being on the ground, having honest conversations. Look, what it's really going to come down to is people taking a look at candidates and understanding who's going to be out and working for them on their best behalf. So I truly believe with the work that I've done in the past and talking about issues around making sure people have health care, making sure that we end mass incarceration and stop locking so many people up for things they don't need to. When we talk about increasing minimum wage and make sure that, Herman, you wouldn't imagine the number of people that I talk to that just pour their hearts out to me about, working full time and still not being able to afford the basic necessities that they need. So how we have to bring new economic development into the 13th. And really it's about turning the page. It's about bringing a new day. So, I'm encouraging people to go to my website, www.owens.com. Any of you veterans that are out there, please come join our Veterans Council. We want to add more voices from people of every era to our campaign. You matter to us. You will continue to matter. And my father, who's no longer here, had always told me that if you have the capacity and the capability to impact change, you go do it. right? And that's what this campaign's about. It's about impacting change. It's about having the capacity to do so. Something we call intestinal fortitude, right? To get out there, and knock on doors. So, I'm making a call for anybody out there that wants to donate to our campaign. As much grassroots as we are, we have to have funding that's coming in. I'm getting 100% of our funding is from people like you that are out there that are listening right now. We're not accepting any money from any corporations or any lobbyists. Again, we want to keep this campaign people focused. So you can go to our website, you can donate, you can also sign up to volunteer. We're knocking on doors. We've got our Veterans Council are making phone calls, so we're calling other veterans throughout the district. We're calling Democrats throughout the district that we know are going to vote to come out and join us. We're knocking on doors all throughout the district. So any weekend you got a little bit of spare time, you can contact us on the campaign and go out and knock on some doors with us. Look, wasting a little shoe leather never hurt anybody, right? So we've all been on those long marches before, those long humps. So it's not unlike anything you've done before. Just instead of a backpack, we've got a bag handing out literature. So if you guys want to come join us, again, we'd love to have all the support we have. So we can have.
With us veterans, and we'll file that claim. So there are times we would like to do appeals. So will your office be open to assist veterans with whatever needs we have? Look,
without a doubt, going back to talking about the Veterans Council and then the Liaison Council, these are things, the Veterans Council, Liaison Council, the education educators for Owens are put in place. These are things we put in place for the campaign, but I do not expect them to go away, right? These are the beginnings of a structure that I'm building out for our congressional offices that will stay in place. So I fully expect to have our Veterans Council to remain in place after I'm a congressional member of Congress. So you will see someone walking around with a 13th Congressional District Veterans Council pin on that will be representing me in our veterans meetings. Part of opening up the additional offices that I talked about, right, is going to be a vitally important part of that, because instead of just having 2 offices, right, we want to have 3 offices, if not 4 offices, so we can make sure that veterans don't have to drive as far to get from one office to the next. We want to start some regular communications. So look, you're not just hearing from me when it's election time. I've been on this show when I'm running. I've been on this show when I'm not running, because these issues are important to me, and I think we should talk about them year round. So, I'm going to be an advocate for those issues. I'm going to be an advocate for those veterans who need services for either initial review, for a re-review, for an appeal, to make sure we're introducing new services that they may not even be aware of. Look, it does no good to have veteran services that are out there that even if we can get them pushed through Congress and get them approved, those veteran services do absolutely no good to no one if our veterans don't know about it, right? If we're not taking the time and we don't build out the infrastructure, if we're not doing things within the district to make sure these veterans know about those services, it's not doing any good. So I want to make sure part of what we're doing is making sure that we're bringing those services to the people through, veteran-specific issues in the district, right? We talk about general town halls, but why can't we do a veteran-specific town hall within a district? Why can't we do a climate-specific town hall within a district? We can do these things. These are things that I want to bring to the table and I want to do as our next congressman.
Oh, that is great. We'll be looking forward.
Outstanding. Awesome. I appreciate it.
As we move forward toward the end of our show, I just been informed that this weekend is daylight saving time, so it's time to turn your clocks back 1 hour.
Forward 1 hour. We're going to spring forward.
Okay, yeah, spring forward. We're going to spring forward, so we're going to lose an hour. Veterans today has been super. We had a great conversation with Mr. Michael Owens, who's running for Democratic Congressman for the 13th Congressional District. And as we bring it to a close, what other final issues or final comments would you like to have?
You know, Herman, I just want to, again, thank you for having me on the show. It's always a pleasure to be here. Thank you for providing that voice, right, and information about veterans' activities that are going on. You know, and I'm proud to, as I said, be a veteran, a multi-generational veteran that understands the challenges that we have, and someone that's going to be willing to work hard on veterans' issues, to be a confidant, to be an advocate, to be a champion in this space, is something we vitally need within the halls of Congress. So, you know, I want to continue to be that voice. I want to ask, you know, every veteran that's out there, join our campaign. You know, come on board, help us win this election, so we can push for these rights that we know we've earned, for these services that we know we should have, and for the dignity and respect that we've all earned.
Well, that is good. This is Veterans Today. You're listening to us on WCEG Network. You can watch us on YouTube at WCEG Network. We are the Worldwide Community Empowerment Group. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and this will be placed on Facebook, and it also will be in the archives. And as we bring this to a close, we will have a new guest next weekend, next Friday. I believe that's Friday the 13th. We're working on the 13th, so we will have a guest at that time. And with that, we had a wonderful guest, Mr. Michael Owens, and we enjoyed it. The 2 hours went fast, and he provided us a lot of information. So with that, we're going to say good afternoon.